Good morning and welcome to the Morning Scoop for Friday, June 18th. This is your daily Buckeye Fix. I'm Tom Orr. The Minnesota game is in 76 days. The game against Michigan in 162 days. Today is also the first day of maybe the biggest visit in, a bunch of years at Ohio State. JT Tuimoloau, the number one overall player in the class of 2021. Basically the only unsigned player in the class of 2021. He is at Ohio State today. He will be at Ohio State this weekend on his official visit. It is the third of his 5 official visits this month. He'll make his decision at the end of the month. Ohio State would really, really like this weekend to go pretty well. So I thought, okay, let's find out what's actually going to happen on this official visit this weekend that will help maybe determine how JT Tuimoloau, where he ends up going to school and where he ends up maybe becoming an All-American, maybe becoming the next top defensive end for Larry Johnson or Alabama or Oregon or wherever he goes. So I thought, okay, who do we know that would know what an official visit is? And I thought, Kirk Barton, former Ohio State captain and All-American. He's been on an official visit at Ohio State. Kirk, let's just first start with, let's explain the difference between an official and an unofficial visit and what that distinction is.
So an unofficial can happen at any time, and the big distinction is it's usually not overnight, and the parents have to pay the whole way. They have to pay for the airfare, they have to pay for the hotel, they got to pay for the meals. And with the official, it's the exact opposite, where Ohio State can either fly you in or they can pay your mileage. They put you up at a hotel, wine and dine you, take you around, and it's all on their dime. So that's the one big distinction is Ohio State's paying for him to come in and kind of see our wares, so to speak.
So you mentioned the travel. If you're flying in, are these guys flying like first class, or is this? I mean, you were driving down from Perry, obviously, but when these guys are coming on visits, are they flying first class? Is this just like, yep, we're going to throw the offensive lineman back and coach? Like, how does this work?
Honestly, it's different with this kid because I don't know if he's a bigger kid. I mean, I'd hope they put him in first class, but a lot of times they're usually in coach and they're budget cognizant. But he's the last guy. He's a 5-star. Like, if you want to risk putting him in coach in a middle seat, flying from Washington State, I'd probably splurge for first class, but that's completely at the discretion of the school.
Mm-hmm. So you get here, you land. Coaches are presumably picking you up at the airport. Mm-hmm. What do? Are you just going straight to your hotel and like hanging out, or are you going straight to the facility? Like, what is that first kind of half day or day of your visit like?
Yeah, well, JTT flew in a day early, so he's completely on his own for Thursday. He could obviously kind of make it like a hybrid unofficial into an official, where he could come see the coaches and whatever, but they can't pay for anything until Friday morning. So Friday morning, they'll have breakfast for him, probably give him a tour of the building. He'll meet with Larry Johnson, Ryan Day. I'm sure Ryan Day will be right at his hip the entire day, just because when it's a big time guy, like a Paris Johnson, these guys, like the head coach has to be the lead recruiter. Like Nick Saban is not going to put this up to some D-line coach. Like he's going to be with this kid everywhere he goes. So that's how you do it when a big dog's in town, especially when he's the last uncommitted 21 prospect. So I mean, they're going to pull out all the stops. I mean, USC put him up in a helicopter, and I can't imagine what Bama's going to do, and these other schools. But we gotta really pull it out. Wine and dine them, take them to a nice restaurant, lobster tails, filet mignon. Like they let the players take them out at night. They usually pair them off with someone who's usually same position or has something in common or whatever. So I wouldn't be surprised if like Jack Sawyer took him around, or Haskell Garrett. He's Polynesian also. Like I think that there's going to be some similarities where all the D linemen take them out, but usually they hang out with the players at night, and the parents go off with the coaches. So that's usually the split.
And those would be the recruiting hosts. You've heard people talk about recruiting hosts in the past. Yeah. Those are the recruiting hosts. Mm-hmm. And so he's friends with Emeka Egbuka, with G. Scott Jr. I would assume that they would probably be involved in that process.
I mean, they might even be the hosts. Mm-hmm. I mean, traditionally you pair up with someone from your position group, but if they're super tight, I mean, it wouldn't be surprising at all if one of those guys was taking them around. But the guys like to get to know who they're going to be playing in the same room with. Mm-hmm. But obviously those guys are both from Washington State. It makes sense that they're a host. I'm sure they'll be around even if they're not the official host. The official host gets like per diem to take the kid out, go eat, Wendy's or whatever. Like get like $60 or $70 a day. They got, usually the players will go out to eat separate from the parents. But this is a different one because he's by himself. So it's not like, back in the glory days when I was there, we'd have 15 kids. So the kids on the first night, the kids would go one way, the parents would go the other way. The coaches would go with the parents, and they'd have like, steak, wine, drink, whatever. And then the players would go off and eat. We have to like, used to be Buckeye Hall of Fame Cafe, which is like a Dave & Buster's, play arcade games, eat chicken tenders, wings. It was a blast. But it's going to be interesting to see if they split up, like with him being the only kid here, because before it was like all the recruits that kind of hang out together with all the current players and mix, but with him being by himself, they might just keep it all together. I'm not sure.
Yeah, that first weekend of June, they had all of their current commits in, or most of their current commits in, and then had some other guys in there, also unofficial, so I would assume that was a lot of group stuff. This may be a little more individual.
Yep.
There are two parts of the conversation, because they have presentations that they make and all that kind of stuff. There's the football side of things and then the non-football side of things. So let's start with the football side of things. When you're coming in as a line recruit, and you're sitting down with your position coach or your coordinator on your side of the ball, what kind of conversations are you having about the football side of things?
A lot of times, like Larry Johnson will take him in his room. They'll watch film. They'll watch, like, this is Jack Sawyer in spring. He's a freshman. And they'll show the guys that are, like, leaving. Here's Haskell. He's a senior. You'll be with him for a year. Kind of show them the depth chart. Show them these are some of the drills we do. Here's some Chase Young film. Watch him. He just signed for $20 million. His next contract will be $300 million. And here's Nick Bosa film. He'll re-up for $150 million. Joey Bosa just signed for $100 million. Like, so you kind of show off kind of who you've put into the league. That's going to be obviously huge for him. And just, build your rapport. Do you have any questions for me? My coaching style is Larry Johnson's coaching style plays well with kids because he doesn't swear. He's very, the players like to run through a wall for him because he's such a good dude. And he's a great technician. And the proof is in the pudding when you look at how many guys from going all the way back to like Courtney Brown and Michael Haynes, like first rounders, top picks that he's put in the league. He's done it for a long time. And he's literally the best D-line coach in the history of the game. So it's, if you're trying to invest in yourself and become the best possible player for the best possible, chance to make it in the league and make a lot of money, like Larry Johnson's the guy you want to go to. He's like the D-line whisperer, so to speak. And then they'll usually move into Ryan Day's office with LJ, or it might just be Ryan Day and the kid and the parents, and kind of go through the stuff, go through, just this is what we're like, we're family here, with brotherhood, and kind of give that spiel. And then usually it's about time for lunch, so they'll go grab lunch somewhere nearby, and then they'll do usually like a campus tour kind of thing.
And when you're talking in Ryan Day's office, I assume this probably depends on the kid, that may be a 5-minute conversation or a 45-minute conversation, but how long can that run? With someone like JT Tuimoloau, is Ryan Day blocking off 2 hours to go sit with his kid in the office?
I think you have to. You have to make the parents comfortable. You have to make them comfortable. They're coming from Washington State. I don't think they're worried about him coming all the way out here because he's visiting us, and it's really between us and Bama. So it's not like anywhere close is going to be competitive to getting him. But I'm sure Ryan will talk about the NIL stuff that we're implementing, and the power of the Ohio State brand, and just the family atmosphere. And you want to designate a lot of time because whoever your head coach is kind of the rock star of the team. If it's Nick Saban or if it's Dabo or whoever, and that's the guy you see on TV the most. That's the guy that he's really spent a lot of time with me and taking a lead in my recruitment. So that's one of those things where I think Ryan's going to do a really good job, and he plays really well in these environments. He's a very, very he's a great speaker. Players love playing for him, and he's a great recruiter. The proof's in the pudding. When you see how many of these top kids are pulling from all over the country, it's because Ryan Day is really good at recruiting.
Yeah, and he's very personable. Like even in press conferences, very formal settings where we're all raising our hand.
Yeah.
He's very personable.
Yeah.
It's very conversational. Like it's always a very nice, relaxed environment with him around.
Yep.
You mentioned the NIL piece there. That's a very smooth transition to the non-football portion of this conversation.
Yeah.
We talked to Mark Pantoni and Aaron Dunston, who's the director of on-campus recruiting, a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
Aaron said the presentation's probably going to be about NIL is going to be about 30% or so of their presentation. But then when you start getting questions, it's probably going to be more like 50%. How do you sell that to I would imagine that NIL is going to be a bigger thing with JT Tuimoloau than it would be for a 3-star wide receiver who, the potential earning, the earning potential there is like potentially an order of magnitude or two bigger for someone of that magnitude. So, how do you sell that? What are you selling to them?
See, I think this is going to be the most fascinating part because these kids want to figure out how can we make money while we're here. That's a whole new ball game compared to the olden days. And what are the endorsement opportunities? How will people support the because the biggest thing about an endorsement is you can get a sponsor, but if they don't get a return on investment, they're not going to re-up. You're not going to get more. But if you put him with Huntington Bank or something, and then all of a sudden 10,000 Ohio State fans move their banking to Huntington because we got JTT, and they're like, oh my God. And it's going to be fascinating to watch how they track this stuff. It's like, oh yeah, you type in code JTT, and then, when you open your new bank account, so they can track the impact that he's really having. It's going to be a supernova, really, for recruiting, because, man, some of these quarterbacks and these kids that we got coming, they're going to be really marketable dudes. And I think he's going to be kind of the first test kitchen, so to speak, because he's literally coming in, right as it opens up on July 1st or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's going to be fascinating, because, like, it used to be like academics, and this is the business school, and this is, where this is our new building, and this is the cafeteria, and this is the dorm. But now it's like, how can I make some money? And even if, like you said, like if you're a third string, 3-star wide receiver or whatever, like if he can make an extra $1,000 a month, that counts. Like that's real money for a college kid. I mean, you've been in college, I've been in college. You're digging through the couch cushion for money for a pizza and stuff like that. And all of a sudden, like you get an extra $1,000, $2,000 a month from whatever, a car dealership, Raising Cane, whatever. And that changes everything. It's just like free money. So it's something that I think all these coaches are scrambling to figure it out, and whoever does it the best is going to be in the catbird seat, so to speak.
Yeah, a sponsored Instagram post does sound better than selling plasma, as some of us may have explored in the late 90s. You mentioned the academic piece. You mentioned the tour of campus thing. You go back to like the NCAA video game when you're bringing kids in. It's like, what do you want to emphasize? Do you want to emphasize playing time, or do you want to emphasize academics, or do you want to emphasize whatever your choices were? It's been a while since that game was out, but is that just knowing what to sell to each individual person? Because this is not just like, here is our off-the-shelf presentation. This is a little bit customized for each individual person. So is that just conversations with coaches in advance that they know, like, hey, this kid is really serious about academics and really wants to go to the business school, so we need to spend more time focusing on that, and maybe we bring in the dean of the business school? I mean, is there stuff like that happens? Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, and I don't know if, they might bring in the dean of the business school, but like, the thing with NIL is it's like, you can start your business as soon as you get here. You can be an entrepreneur from day one. So that's just like you're like a living, breathing entity. You're your own business instead of just going to business school and learning about it. Like you can actually run your own business now. So I think that the academic piece is going to be huge, and it's obviously always important to kids. But a lot of these kids and their parents, they're looking at 3 years down the road. Am I going to get drafted, and how much money am I going to make? I mean, if we just cut all the wheat from the chaff, it's like they want to know how much money can I make and how quickly can I get it. And so with NIL, it really accelerates the curve where you're like, hey, you can make a lot of money as soon as you get here if you sign here. And it's going to be real interesting to see how some of the more unscrupulous schools like deal with it, because now they can legally pay these kids. So it's like, if they do a sponsored Instagram post and some donor from Texas A&M's like, yeah, I'll pay you $100,000 to do an Instagram post. Like, for one post? It's like, because that's like, it like legalizes what they've done for years with the bag men. It's like now they can just do it legally, like through these channels, and that's going to be fascinating.
What I'm really interested in is, I think there's going to be a different calculation for pretty much every kid. Like, hey, I can make $50,000 a year at this school as opposed to $25,000 at that school, but the second school that's going to pay me less up front has a better chance of putting me in the NFL based on historical track record. So, is it worth betting on myself longer term and waiting until the, kind of delay my gratification a little bit to potentially get, $500,000 more from the NFL 3 years from now, if, and that's going to be really interesting to see how kids balance that, because that's, that's a tough decision now. I mean, you think about choosing your job. Do I choose money? Do I choose the thing I really want to do? Do I, the people I want to work with, my, length of my, I mean, like all that kind of stuff you're thinking of as an adult. This is kids trying to balance that with their parents, and parents may have their own individual financial stresses and all that kind of stuff. I mean, that's going to be really interesting to see how kids balance that. Yeah, I mean, there's some kids that they send their scholarship checks home to help their mom out. And it's like now all of a sudden you can make $1 or $2,000 a month, and all of a sudden you're paying mom's rent, you're paying her car note. Like, I don't know. It's just, it doesn't always have to be like designer clothes. It could be like you're actually helping my mom make ends meet. So that's what's going to be fascinating, man. I can't wait to see how it is unleashed, because there's a part of me feels like it's like we're opening Pandora's box now, that where we're like, all of a sudden we're like, oh my God, now these kids are, because like I worry about some kids that like just aren't good players, or they're like already on Ohio State and they're like trying to launch something, and I'm like, you haven't even like really played yet. So it's like, you can't really put the cart before the horse. Like, you got to go be a dominant player before someone's going to want to endorse your brand. You don't want to just start opening up brands and then, I don't know. But it's like, we live in an era with
there's been more ways to make money that didn't exist 20 years ago than ever, like with YouTube. You know, the guys start YouTube channels and they walk around the facility and they take a video and then they monetize it, or they have a Twitch stream, they play video games and people can tip them, and it's just like, it's a crazy paradigm. Like there's kids that played on Ohio State, they were Twitch streaming and people were giving them money, they're tipping them, giving them $100, and whoa, I can't take that because that's a benefit, it's an extra benefit, like that's compliance. And I don't know, it'll be fascinating. I'm really excited to see it, and it's just going to be really fascinating to see how this recruitment winds down and see honestly what kind of impact he makes with the NIL stuff as soon as he gets here, because he might cash out immediately and have a bunch of sponsors, or he might not have any. Like it's going to be really interesting to see how these guys sell themselves to get sponsored.
Yeah, and you're going from this weekend where he's visiting. He has another couple visits. He's Oregon and Alabama left, and then presumably around July 1st, he's going to have to make a decision pretty soon because fall camp is coming. That is not all that far off.
Yeah.
And then NIL starts July 1st, assuming it gets signed in Ohio. It hasn't been officially signed in Ohio yet, but it sure sounds like it's coming. It's signed in 16 or 18 other states already. The NCAA is probably looking at some court stuff. We'll probably have Dan Lust on to talk about that in a future episode. But there's a lot that's going to be going on in the next this weekend with the JT Tuimoloau visit. After that with the NIL stuff. After that with the summer, and then into fall. And boy, wouldn't that make this a good time to join Buckeye Scoop? I mean, I don't know. I work for Buckeye Scoop, so I might be a little biased. So would you think? It seems to you, I would assume like it seems like a good time to join Buckeye Scoop.
Father's Day is coming up. If you want the best experience, the best culture, the best board, the best inside information on what's really going on inside the Woody Hayes. We're in the Woody Hayes right now, but we actually can get inside those doors and get info. Then you want to join the Scoop, because the Scoop's where it's at.
So that is this is a fantastic time. Yeah, Father's Day. That's a good point. Hadn't thought of that. Man. Yeah, Father's Day is coming. Dad doesn't need another tie. Get him a Buckeye Scoop membership instead. Oh. And you can also check out our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Buckeye Scoop. Just hit the subscribe button and you get notified every time we post a new video. And finally, our podcasts. They're on all the podcast platforms you know and love: Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify. We're there. Just search Buckeye Scoop to find all of those. You can subscribe right there and also leave us a 5-star rating and review, which will help other folks find those shows, and which we genuinely do appreciate. So thank you guys all for joining us. Enjoy Buckeye Scoop this weekend. It should be quite a wild ride on the JT Tuimoloau visit weekend, and then we will be back on Monday to fill you in on how everything went. Talk to you then.